Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers. This morning I'm looking at a book which is very relevant for those involved in insolvency matters. It's been published by Jordan Publishing Limited and it's this book here. It's called Insolvency Legislation. It's now in a 4th edition. There's the spine and there is the back, so you can see what it's got. It's been written by Doyle and Andrew Keay. This is the book itself. It's a very heavy book. It's a paperback. It's just under 2,000 pages long. You've got a very good index at the back. Then you've got the standard structure for Jordan's, which is paragraph numbering at the sides, which is extremely helpful to find things. There are, in fact, general notes as well in the appendices to help you with the insolvency rules themselves. And you do have occasionally various commentaries concerning the actual legislation itself, which is of course a minefield of interest and comment. That's the actual front page of the book. You can see it there. And then you've got a foreword by Alistair Norris, which is well worth reading. The foreword is always very important. He's the Vice Chancellor of the County Palatine, and there's also a preface of importance together with the list of cases which are there, and there's also a basic contents structure. Now, as I've said, it's a very detailed book, a very large number of cases, as you can see, and it's a heavy book. But it's one that I think is very important, especially if you are involved in any form of insolvency work. I think the important thing to bear in mind is that this is one of a number of books that will be available which you may see in the courts. Obviously there are a number of different works available, and so it's quite difficult sometimes to know what the judiciary are using if there's a particular point. I've had one or two where there have been some particular issues about particular sections of the Insolvency Act, and when that happens, the difficulty is you've got to know what book the judge is using so that you actually are in tune with him. What I've done in the past is I've actually had to have an adjournment in order to try and sort out what he's looking at and what I'm looking at so that we're together. But this book itself is actually very good because it does give you some general commentary notes on the insolvency rules themselves. Now, we've written a review which is on the web and in the journals, and we've given it the title, A Wise Investment for the Insolvency Practitioner, now with online updates. And this is another useful emerging facility which many of these titles now have with the internet. So you've got the book, the paper version, then you've got online updates to go with changes that may take place, case law and so forth, and statutory instruments. This is what we say about the book anyway. If you are a practitioner grappling with insolvency issues on behalf of clients, this is the work of reference we think you need. It's been recently published by Jordan's, now in its 4th edition, over 2,000 pages, and it's handy enough actually in a paperback format, and the paper's nice and tough, which is helpful. And apparently it's been 5 years in the making, so there's been a lot of work that's gone into this book. Now, according to the editors, Doyle and Andrew Keay, the publication of this edition was deliberately postponed in anticipation that there might emerge, quote, an overhauled version of the insolvency rules. As it transpires, this overhaul has reached the stage, say the authors, quote, of the draft version of the new rules presently under consultation. These, note, are available on the Insolvency Services website. It's quite important to know about this because as I record the video, we've just had the new insolvency figures for the last quarter in 2014, that's the 2nd quarter, and they are very high. So you can see that this is an area which is of some concern. So let me continue by saying, as the subtitle of this book, Annotations and Commentary, indicates, the book provides commentary and annotations on all the relevant case law and legislative amendments pertaining to insolvency. The starting point, as the authors state, is the Insolvency Act 1986 itself, which for a number of reasons represents a major reform of the UK insolvency law. Following the Act in 1986, a number of pieces of insolvency legislation, both primary and secondary, have been enacted, including the recently introduced Insolvency Rules 2005. But again, there may well have to be further overhauls, of course. But what we've got here is where the law is at the moment. It's a key primary legislation book, in essence, and it provides most valuable professional guidance and practical guidance in our view. It identifies key legal principles, comments in detail on practical issues and procedures, and defines certain specific wording and terminology. And as you would expect, this new edition contains a wealth of new material, including amendments to the insolvency rules and new case law in international insolvency. So lawyers practicing internationally will be pleased to note that there is useful and detailed coverage of issues pertaining to the European insolvency regulations themselves and the cross-border insolvency regulations. Remember, we are much more global today, and there's much more besides. For those doing further research, there is at least 100 pages or so of the book, which is given over to tables, statutes, statutory instruments, and so forth. And a new and welcome development in this context, which I indicated earlier, was that the book is now a text that's available online as part of Jordan's Insolvency Law Online service. Do have a look at their website, because they've got a huge amount. They've redone the website and they've got a huge amount of additional information. And it's scheduled to be updated every 6 months, possibly quarterly. Let me conclude by saying that when you're preparing a case, conferring with clients or colleagues, or providing advocacy in court, quick access to such a reliable information volume such as this is very important. It's both complete and contemporary, and it's certainly a time saver. Everything considered, adding this book, especially with its linked online facilities, to your professional library couldn't be anything but a wise investment. The publication is cited as at February 2014, and I'm recording this in the summer of 2014. But let me just remind you of the book again very quickly. That's what it looks like, and that's the back of it. As I said, very heavy, but the stuff in the middle, there's the Insolvency Act itself, is a huge amount of information. I have found the general notes to be very useful. They're similar to the sort of thing you get with a white book. But I'd like to thank Lewis, Doyle and Andrew Keay, and also Jordan's and the online people, very much for this new and very, very useful volume. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.